Alright, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Journals, only here on Black Mass Paranormal. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, definitely give this video a like, and let me know what you think in the comments. So, one thing that I have realized that I am not doing is I am not giving you all the full picture. And, first of all, I kind of want to apologize, because you all, I'm realizing that you all are only getting a small portion of what's actually happening out in the woods. Yes, you all know that I'm out and I'm hiking and I'm going to these places, and you can see just how I'm breathing and sweat pouring down my face, that I am actually out in the mountains of Appalachia. But there are things that happen behind the camera that you all don't typically see. So the first thing that I want to talk about was my first encounter with the Feral People. Now, what the fuck is that? A lot of people are kind of skeptical going back and forth regarding this. There are a lot of people in Appalachia that have the mentality that, you know, they just need to be left alone. They're not dismissing them. They just need to be left alone. But in my adventures, I have been slowly going deeper and deeper into the Appalachian Mountains. Now, these areas, ones that I typically focus on, are areas where people vanish. Now, you all have heard me talk about this a lot on the channel, but I think it serves an extremely important purpose, because I think that the way that these people just disappear with no sign of anything remotely like happening to them is important to the story. There's a lot to this planet that we don't understand, so it's not even it's not even comprehensible, the amount of information that we are missing, that we just don't know, that the stuff has come and gone and there's small traces maybe left over. In these encounters, I'm starting to recognize different patterns, and one of those patterns that I'm seeing mainly with the Feral People, the majority of backpackers and people who have encounters with them, they're usually briefly, sometimes they're happening during the day, but the majority of them are happening at night. There are these kind of clicking sounds, almost like snapping, that people are hearing. And when I was kind of going back and thinking about it, like, hunters use local animal calls that will enable them to communicate with other parties in the group a lot of the times, or, you know, tell them where they're at in a certain area. I think the Feral People are doing something similar, and I didn't really catch this until, like, I kind of thought it, you know, I was like, yeah, they're doing some sort of communication, but I didn't know for sure. So everybody knows about Cades Cove. Everybody knows how mysterious and beautiful and awesome Cades Cove is. It's kind of like the mecca for a lot of the paranormal activity that happens in East Tennessee happens in Cades Cove. Now that I've heard it a couple of times, I'm recognizing what the sound is. Obviously, I spend a lot of time in the mountains, so my familiarity with birds is kind of something that I'm learning my brain has been picking up on, and I'm being able to identify how the birds are, not only like what kind of birds are in the area, but what the birds are doing to communicate with each other. A lot of them kind of chirp back and forth to, you know, signal there's something coming. There's different kind of calls for a possible food source depending on what kind of bird it is. And in this time, I'm listening very carefully to all of these different birds, and then when I'm going out to these locations where these people are vanishing and things are happening, I'm noticing another type of bird sound. It sounds like a fake bird. I mean, it's an accurate call. The majority of people wouldn't pick up on it. It's taken me a long time to pick up on this call, but there is this strange call that happens kind of shortly before you start kind of hear the clicking. Now, in this encounter that happened to me recently, I had this kind of image of what these feral people looked like. There was a lot of descriptions talking about large boils on their face, pronounced jaws, overly muscular in tone, very similar to kind of the Neanderthal side of things. And I've really tried to keep somewhat of a rational view on this and really kind of headed my course on trying to figure out exactly what's happening here, because it's not living in the Appalachians. The majority of people who live here will agree that there is some sort of other population living in the mountains. Are there homeless people? Yeah. Are there people running from the law? Yeah. There is also something else happening. And I think a lot of the encounters that people are having, they're so shocked by what they're seeing that they are misremembering exactly what's happening. So I have grown to be very careful about what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and being extremely aware of my surroundings. Now, this particular encounter happened, I guess technically I saw two. One, when I turned and I looked at him, I thought I was looking at an alien. Like, I didn't know what I was looking at, because, and I'm going to try to use AI to explain what I saw, because it was in the distance. My camera couldn't pick up on it. And I was looking at this thing, and this individual that was approaching me, I was at this time probably close to 2 miles off of a trail. So it's one thing to be in the trails of the mountains, it's another to be off of the trail. It's extremely dangerous to do this. I would not recommend it. Don't do it. It's not worth the clicks. It's really not. I was in the military. I worked as a park ranger. Like, I know how these animals act, and I know how to get myself out of a bad situation. I've been doing this since I was a kid. So, don't let the appearance fool you. The camera adds 10 pounds, right? But anyway, so as I am miles off of the trail here, I look over and I'm seeing something, and they had some sort of hide that was covered, like, over, almost like a cloak on their head, that kind of protruded broadly. That's kind of how I knew it was a hide, because it was really squared things off. And I think that this might be kind of what people are seeing, is these broad, almost cloaks of hides that these individuals are wearing. And I was staring at it, and like, the eyes were like mesmerizing. They weren't white at all. They weren't like discolored or looked sickly or anything like that. But these eyes were like orange. They were almost like reflective in the sun. But I guess maybe some eye diseases. I don't know. I haven't researched eye diseases that could reflect orange. So there could be an explanation for that. But this was kind of like shocking to me. And at this point, I'd already tracked one set of footprints back into an area where they're actually, back in the day, I mean, this site at the very, very earliest was probably from the 90s. That was an old moonshine site. Now, moonshiners were historically well known for going deep in the mountains and using cave systems not only to distill their moonshine, but to hide from law enforcement that have tried to track them, game wardens following these guys out. So they would put themselves intentionally in these different situations, which kind of makes sense because, you know, you're not just going to go out in the mountains for the hell of it. Like, a lot of these individuals relied on this money to survive. Like, the communities needed this money, this moonshine coming off the mountains, to drive their economies, to, you know, make it through the winter. You know, moonshine had historically a variety of uses. So some even used it for gasoline. You know, they would make something called gasohol, which is a mixture of moonshine and gasoline. It's like a 20 to 80%. So 20% gasoline, 80% moonshine. Anyway, so these individuals are going to be deep in the mountains, and a lot of times sites get abandoned for a variety of reasons. But typically when you find a site that is abandoned, it's because the law enforcement has discovered these people. And law enforcement would come in, they would take an axe to their distillers. And the majority of that material would kind of typically be left where it, you know, went out. Sometimes they would take the caps, the moonshiners would, but they would leave the pots. But I wasn't finding any of that. The majority of that stuff just kind of like degraded away. There wasn't any sign of a raid or anything like that. So it kind of tells me that there was something else kind of pushing them out of this perfect area. And I didn't realize it until I started like looking up into the mountains, and the sides of these tunnels protrude just kind of slightly out of the mountain, and they will go in and kind of disappear. I had found what I believed one entrance kind of far away, but at the same time it was not too far when you're thinking about traversing a mountain. It's a little bit hard to explain, but like 5 miles in the mountains is way more than like 5 miles on the road. So all the different terrain, you know, you have different barriers that you have to, so your ability to travel that distance is substantially inhibited. So as I am looking at this person, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I essentially dismiss it. Like, it wasn't like, I thought my brain was kind of playing tricks on me. There's a evolutionary part of our brains that we pick out faces in densely brushed areas. So our brains are going to want to pick out a face, and they are going to want to warn you that something is there. Me, I can't do this. Like, I have to intentionally avoid seeing those warning signs that my brain is picking up on, because I know a lot of the images and stuff of Bigfoot and Dogman that have come out. They are kind of questionable. They looks like something, but maybe not real. Because I'm actually going out to these locations and I'm actually in these areas, I have to pay very close attention to that. So I can't let myself get panicked. And anyway, like, I have to stay cool, because when I'm off of the trail, I'm paying attention to the direction that I'm heading. So if I'm going north, east, or south, you know, I have to pay attention to that stuff. So I can't panic. So I'm seeing this, and at the time I tried to dismiss it and just like, whoa, that was kind of weird, and kind of walk off from the situation. After I had found one set of tracks leading to another set of multiple tracks, I realized that I'm in a situation that I don't really need to be in. It doesn't matter if there are feral people or if there are people out here, I'm walking into something that I don't need to be in, because it's just, I'm alone. Yes, I have a firearm, but these people, the people are way more experienced in the mountains than I am. And I know my shit. So they would just dust me, be a thing. So at this point, I realized that I got to turn around and I got to leave. And as I'm leaving, I've got my camera off. I will have to do this a lot of times because I have to turn my camera off because I have to pay attention to what I'm doing. It's really difficult to film, talk to a camera, and navigate the wilderness. I turn it off because I don't really think, in the back of my mind, I've dismissed all of what I've seen, and I start walking away. And as I'm walking across the mountain, I see this figure just ass and elbows sprinting down the side of this mountain, and then just whoop, right into this tunnel. It looked like a rock, honestly. I thought it was a rock, but it wasn't. It's some sort of tunnel system. And then I'm seeing it, I'm like, holy crap, like I just saw this not once but twice. So at this point, like, I gotta go. I'm leaving the area and I'm putting all of this stuff together in my head. And there are these tunnel systems that I know are in the mountains that I'm going to try to go back to. They're pretty difficult to find, but I've been on this trail for a while. I've been looking for this stuff for a while. And that's where kind of this next iteration of the channel is going to go, is I'm going to do my best to get into one of these tunnels, or at least document one of them. So, I could say, yeah, this is right, because going in, there's a multitude of problems that could go wrong when you are in a tunnel system like this, or cave system, however you want to look at it. The official stance of the state of Tennessee is that these tunnel systems were built by moonshiners. Now, there's a vast network of these tunnel systems. They have, in this, like, this isn't like that's another thing. This isn't something that's a theory either. Like, this is factual. These tunnels are there. The state of Tennessee says that they were dug by moonshiners, but these tunnel systems, the ones that the state of Tennessee has documented, they go like 5 miles through the mountains. Like, you're talking a massive undertaking, massive. And the problem with the caves, and moonshiners would know this, there's low oxygen. There are gases that leak out of them that can be, poisonous to you. There's carbon dioxide poisoning, where you essentially just go to sleep and that's it. So moonshiners, yes, they use cave systems, but they're typically made for storage. You're not going to want to cook in a cave. You're not going to want to distill in a cave, because you're using a fire and you're using up the oxygen. You're burning the oxygen. To me, these tunnel systems, as the state claims, I don't think that they were made by the moonshiners. So that is one of the stories that I wanted to kind of go into a little bit further detail on. That didn't quite make it out in the video. It didn't get my point across the way that I wanted to in the video. So I'm in the process of doing multi-day filming type stuff. So my projects are going to be a little bit bigger. They're going to be a little bit more in depth as I do this, because I have to cover a lot of area. And I also have to condense all of that stuff down so it's consumable for you all, because an 8-hour long video would be kind of impossible to put together and get out there. I have been working really hard on getting myself in a better position to be able to film these things. I've purchased more equipment to be able to do this stuff. So we're going to be moving forward. It's just going to be a little bit kind of like a slower process because I really enjoy the mountains. I enjoy this adventure, and I'm going to do my best to kind of relay things that are happening to you all in the future. So hopefully you all enjoyed this episode of the Paranormal Journals. More of a personal account. I'm going to find a couple other ways to try to fund these trips, try to fund these investigations. So, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Definitely give this video a like. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time.